Hello, everybody out there, and it's great to be part of the Home Roots Online Weekend Bluegrass Festival. I'm so glad that Leonard Podolak, hey Leonard, invited me a part of this, and for you folks that are coming in through my Facebook page, hello, and all you folks on the Artist Works Tony Trischka School of Banjo. And anyway, thanks all for being here. I'm going to do a new tune to start with on this gold tone missing link banjo, which I've been sort of addicted to lately. I've written 3 tunes in the last week and a half or something like that. This I just wrote yesterday, so it's a little on the edge, but hopefully this will come out. And it doesn't have a name yet, but it will soon, I'm sure. All right, there is that, whatever that is. And this is, I think, the 5th Quarantoni broadcast stream that I've done so far. And there'll be another one next week as well. More information on that as it comes up. And I'm going to do a tune I recorded along with Tom Adams. And I believe David Greer was on this also. We did a thing that Tony Furtado put together, actually. We did a little trio tour back in the 90s, and it was the Rounder Banjo Extravaganza. And this is, we did a live album for Rounder that this tune ended up on, and it's called Neon Tetra. And it uses some of Bill Keith's tuning pegs. Thank you, Bill. All right. There will be people walking through from time to time, including my son Sean, who was handing me some important information. Bruce Waltic used to see me with the Down City Ramblers in Syracuse in the late 60s and early 70s. And that was the first bluegrass band I was ever in. Way back when, with Tom Hosmer, Joel Diamond, and Harry Gilmore, a.k.a. Lou Martin, and back in Syracuse, New York. And saying hello to Bob, Kimberly, Dominic, and Bruce. And tell me where you're viewing from. I'm viewing from my house here in Fairlawn, New Jersey. I think that's what I'm supposed to say, if I'm understanding this correctly. And it's coming right up on Mother's Day. So I would like to toast all you mothers that are mothers to be, grandmothers, and my mother-in-law, Flora, upstairs, and my lovely wife, who is the mother of Sean and Zoe. And this is to you. Happy Mother's Day in advance, this coming Sunday. I'm not sure if you're supposed to pick and drink at the same time. So speaking of mothers, this is a tune that was made famous by the original Carter family in Bristol, Tennessee, back in the late 20s, 27 or 28, something like that. And actually, Sean, can you hand me that guitar for a second? It's sitting here, and I'm just doing this kind of spontaneously. Let's see. It's a little bit loose, but it was sort of a spontaneous thing. And I couldn't even begin to play like Mother Maybelle Carter, but because she was Mother Maybelle Carter, it seems appropriate that I should do. She was kind of the main person that stood out in the original Carter family. So she was a wonderful, wonderful guitar player, played auto harp, played slide guitar also, which I didn't know until recently. So I'll just do a little bit of Wildwood Flower. This is a bluegrass show, so I'll just go through a little bit of Wildwood Flower, dedicated to Mother Maybelle Carter. Go back to this missing link banjo here, and this is another tune that I wrote last week. I think I played this 2 weeks ago, but I've added a section to it, and it's another one of these untitled tunes. But the first part, actually no, that's not true. It's Django's Dream, and I dedicate this to our dog Django. And but the very beginning of this has just a little riff from Django Reinhardt to kind of tie a Django into it. That Django. So this is Django's Dream. Thank you so much for that. And that's Django's Dream. And also, again, really glad that you're here with me. And tell us where you're located. Please send that information in so we can do a shout out to you. And I want to say hi to Texie out there on the West Coast. So good to have you here, Texie. It's been a while. And let's see. Yeah, it's a bluegrass festival, and I should do a Bill Monroe medley. Indeed. One of my favorite Bill Monroe stories was told to me by Roland White, who played guitar with Bill in '67, along with Byron Berline and Lamar Greer, and I think Vic Jordan later on that year. And Roland, of course, was founding member of the Kentucky Colonels, along with Clarence White and Billy Ray Latham and Roger Bush. Anyway, Roland told me the story that when he was with Bill, he said to Bill, on records, Bill, you'd always have double fiddles, and it was like such a great sound. And why don't you ever do it live? Live double fiddles would be so amazing. And Bill said, they don't get along. Short response, they don't get along. Any two fiddlers wouldn't get along. I'm not sure why that is, but anyway. So I'm going to start with Jerusalem Ridge, one of Bill's most wonderful tunes, and then go into one that he had Bill Keith record with him in 1963, March of 1963, called Santa Claus, and it's based on an old tune called I Don't Love Nobody, Nobody Loves Me, a really cheery tune. But Bill kind of made it a happy thing by calling it Santa Claus. And then I'll finish off with either Roanoke or Shenandoah Breakdown. I never know till I get there which one I'm going to do. As the story goes, if I do Roanoke, Bill Monroe wrote that in Roanoke, Virginia one time when he had a toothache one night and ended up writing this song, I guess, to fend off the feeling of the toothache. Speaking of Roanoke, this poster back here is from the very first Roanoke bluegrass festival, the very first 3-day bluegrass festival it ever was in Fincastle, Virginia. I had the great joy of being able to go to that when I was 16 years old. And you can see the line up there, perhaps, if you look closely. But anyway, so this is the Bill Monroe medley. Meter with that last hit. Anyway, hello to my old pal Gail. Hey, Gail Kramer. I'm assuming that's you. And my brother-in-law Dominic and my cousin Anita. Hi, folks out there, family. And hello to New York City, Washington, D.C., Lockahachie, Florida, the UK, Sunnyvale, California, Kenosha, Wisconsin, Annapolis, Maryland, and Little Rock, Arkansas. Wonderful to have you all folks from all over the place here tonight with me for the fifth Quarantoni. Let's see what will be next on the list here. Let me just grab this sheet of paper. All right, I'm going to slow things down a little bit here. Speaking of Mother's Day, I'll send this out to my mother-in-law, Flora, who is an amazing woman who comes from Napoli originally. And she can cook. I'll tell you that for a fact. I did a duet album with Bela Fleck in the 90s, and this tune is on there. And the album is called Solo Banjo Works, or Solo Banjo Works, depending on their emphasis. And we did one duet. I did the first half solo. Bela did the second half solo. We did a couple of tunes in the middle together, one of which was named by Bela, and it's called Killer Bees on Caffeine. And it sounds kind of like that, actually. This is not that tune, though. But this is called Lake Flora. All right, there's Lake Flora. I just had this urge to do a tune by the Dillards, Rodney, Doug, and Mitch, and I'm spacing the name of their bass player, unfortunately. This is a tune that Doug wrote, wonderful banjo player, and he has an appearance in the Popeye movie, apparently. So, and hello to Ashland, Oregon, Columbia, Mississippi, Frederick, Maryland, Sioux City, Iowa, and Lenape territory. So to all you wonderful folks out there, thanks for tuning in. And on the first Dillards album, Back Porch Bluegrass, Doug played a tune that he wrote called Doug's Tune. Everyone should have a tune that they wrote for themselves. Monroe's Hornpipe, Earl's Breakdown. I haven't written one for myself, but one of these days, perhaps. It's kind of a fun tune, Doug's Tune. That's actually how Ralph Stanley ended the original Clinch Mountain backstep. This really... I interrupted myself to say that the ending I played for Doug's tune was how Ralph ended Clinch Mountain Backstep on the original version of it. You know, it's a really lonesome kind of tune. Then he goes... Thank you, Asunta. And here's another little note. Syracuse High Mark, Sekernig, Tonawanda, New York, Myrtle Beach, North Carolina, and hello from Anna Canoni. Hello, Anna. Great to have you here. Let's see. Back to the list. Where are we here? Yeah, here's another tune that I wrote on this missing link banjo. This is the first one I wrote on this banjo, and it goes like this. All right, let me grab this other instrument here. And this is a Gourd Banza that preceded the banjo hundreds and hundreds of years ago. It's a beautiful instrument made by a friend of mine down in Arkansas. And when the enslaved Africans were brought to the Americas, they brought with them, in some cases, instruments very similar to this. And in other instances, they made them on these shores. And unfortunately, almost all of the music that they played just went unrecorded. No one ever wrote it down, with the exception of perhaps one tune that appears in the earliest banjo instructors. The very first banjo instruction book came out in 1855, supposedly written by a guy named Thomas Briggs. And the very first tune in there is a tune called Juba, and it's undoubtedly of African origin. And it appears also in some of the other earliest books from the 1850s and into the 1860s. It's kind of an early exercise. So I've combined one or two of these versions together to make a whole. So this is starting with Juba, and then the second tune is a tune that's the earliest example of black banjo music, dating from no later than 1850. And unfortunately, whoever wrote it, their name is long forgotten, and the name of the tune is long forgotten. But and the music appeared in this magazine in the 1890s, and I just gave the notes, didn't give the tuning, but it was apparently directly taken from banjo music. So I decided that it worked best in this tuning. And it wasn't really till the 1840s that they started having the hoop construction, drum construction head and body that we know the banjo was having today. Anyway, so this is the Juba medley. All right, there's the Gourd Banza. And hello to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, folks out there, Burlington, Vermont, Cleveland, Ohio, and Hawthorne, New Jersey, right close to where we live. I'm going to do a few more tunes for you. And I should mention that the proceeds for this evening's musicale will go to Oasis, which is a haven for women and children in Paterson, New Jersey. And things are tough for a lot of folks here. So for those who are contributing, that's where your money will go. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to do a medley of John Hartford's tunes right now. As soon as I get this in tune. Back in the 90s, I was sitting with a band that toured the country, but they were more local to New Jersey, and they invited me, and I sat in with them a couple of times at various clubs in the area, but they said that they had this, they called me one time and said they had an opportunity to do a festival out in Boise, Idaho, and would I like to join them? And I said, sure, that sounds like fun. And they said, and Vassar Clements will be playing fiddle with us also. And I said, well, that sure sweetens the pot. And I was going to go anyway, but it sure was nice. And I thought it was going to be some sort of jam band festival or rock festival. But anyway, so I flew to Salt Lake City to change planes and get up to Boise. So I get to Salt Lake City and I get to the gate where I'm supposed to be flying up from to get to Boise. And I start hearing a banjo player and a mandolin player playing together. And I'm thinking, what is this? And then I heard someone call my name, Tony Trischka. And I look over and there's John Hartford, who was not in the greatest of health at that point. He was in a wheelchair, but he was still going up and playing festivals and was playing this particular festival, as it turned out. And it was his band is what this turned out to be. So the next thing I knew, he took out his fiddle, I took out my banjo, and we started jamming on fiddle tunes at this gate in Salt Lake City. And after about 10 or 15 minutes, a Delta representative came over, and I thought that she was going to put the kibosh on the whole thing. And instead she said, if you guys will keep playing, we'll fly you up to first class. And I went, okay, well, we were going to do this anyway. So we got to fly up to Boise, Idaho, first class. And thank you, John Hartford, for that. So this is, again, a John Hartford medley. And the first tune is from his Aeroplane album, which if you don't have it, if you haven't streamed it, if you don't have it in your Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, you need to own it. It's one of the greatest albums ever made. And this tune is it's the title track, Steam-Powered Aeroplane, that John wrote. And the second tune is a sing-along, and I'm going to have a little help on this one. And if you know it, sing along, we'll do it one time through. I won't know if you're singing, but I hope you'll be singing. And then the last tune is one that I heard John play at that very festival in Boise and just sort of blew me away because he was doing all sorts of crazy tuning. And I couldn't quite figure out what he was doing, but I came back to the festival the next year. And the gentleman who put on the festival happened to have a tape of John's set from that last year's festival. And I learned this from that tape. And you can find this on the YouTube. And it's called Foggy Mountain Landscape. So I'm going to start with Steam-Powered Aeroplane. Hey, babe, you want to boogie? Boogie, woogie, woogie with me. Hey, babe, you want to boogie? Boogie, woogie, woogie with me. We can boogie over here. We can boogie over there. Hey, babe, we can boogie everywhere. Hey, babe, you want to boogie? Boogie, woogie, woogie with me. Huh, huh, huh. Huh. Thank you very much. Well, it's always a little bit of a challenge to end up completely in tune doing that, but it sure is fun to do. Hello, Brazil. Wow. Hello down there in Brazil, way down there. And hello to Michigan. Hi, Jay Ansel. Hey, Jay. And Brian Ritchie in Tasmania. Yeah, that's where I thought you were. Hey, Brian, great to see you. And yeah, we got in our vehicle and happened to turn on the Fish channel. And what should we hear at that exact moment but the country death song? So very coincidental that you should be tuning in here.
So Brian says he wants you to sing more.
Brian wants me to sing more. Brian, if you were here, I would do it. Bring your shakuhachi flute along and we'll do that. If I get a wild hair, maybe you will. We're getting towards the end of this little show here, but and John Kruth, howdy. And thanks for noticing the Yoko Ono poster back there. I almost was going to become, well, I don't think I ever really would have done, but I went to college in fine arts. And my advisor said, you should go to work at this was in Syracuse. I went to Syracuse University because my dad taught there and it was pretty cheap to go. And I was just playing the banjo while I was going to college, but I eked out some sort of a grade that got me through. But my instructor or my advisor said that I should go to the local museum and help out down there and do whatever they wanted so it would look good on my resume. So I said, okay, again, I'm a fine arts major. So I went down there and they said, well, we need a some kind of a slideshow talking about the history of the museum. And so I said, okay, I'll work on that. And I worked on the text, did some research there and found out about the history of the museum and wrote up a text to go along with the slideshow. And it was, for me, kind of boring to do that, but I did it and I figured it'll look good on my resume. And then about 2 weeks later, I found out that Yoko Ono was going to come to that very museum in Syracuse, New York to do a one-woman show in honor of John Lennon's 30th birthday. And so I immediately called up and said, hey, I'd like to take part in this. And since I had my foot in the door from doing the text for that slideshow, they said, yeah, why don't you come down? So I started helping mount the show, and Yoko wasn't there at this point, but the guy that ran the museum was named James Herodis, and he was a friend of Yoko's, and that's how we got her to come up to Syracuse, New York. And she had this plexiglass maze that I was working on and some other things. She had an old VW Bug that they'd taken the top off of the roof off, and there was plastic in there and goldfish swimming around and all these very interesting conceptual art things. And then maybe on the second or third day into the gallery, comes John and Yoko, and John kind of came twirling in, almost dancing in, and I actually had to ask. They were at one point they were standing off to the side, and I actually had a real question to ask Yoko about her maze. And there's John Lennon standing next to her, but this is like 1970, and Abbey Road had just come out, and John Lennon was God at that point. So I asked Yoko the question and never approached John, shook his hand or anything. And my kids will never forgive me for that. But and if I'd realized that he started playing the banjo at that point, I mean, when he was a kid, he played the banjo. And if I'd known that, it would have been a good opening gambit to talk to him. Anyway, that poster was from that show. This Is Not Here is what it was called. So this is a tune, again, I'm really into the history of the banjo as well as trying to do more modern things. And this is a tune that dates from the turn of the century, when the banjo was being used for the earliest Edison cylinders, and women were playing it because it was a sign of good upbringing to play the banjo. And instead of the flute or the piano, some actually played the banjo. And anyway, so folks are playing light classical music and marches and rags and sort of this. And I guess that sort of thing. This, I guess, would go into the kind of the subject of light classical music. It's in C minor. Most banjo tunes are not in C minor. But anyway, this is called the Kansas Jig. Kansas Jig, which actually quickly reminds me of a Bill Emerson tune, one of my all-time favorite banjo players. If you ever get a chance to hear Jimmy Martin's version of Little Maggie, that's Bill Emerson sounding just amazing on that. And Bill Emerson wrote a tune in C minor called Cowboys and Indians. And not the greatest title these days, but it's a great tune. And Jeff Landsman, hello to you. You took lessons from me in 1973 when I lived near Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. Wow. Greetings, Jeff. Great to see you here. And Akira Sataki down in Asheville. Hello to you and all your wonderful family. And Somerville, Massachusetts, where your son used to live. Okay. Where my son, oh, that's you. Where Sean used to live. And I got to thank Sean here for making this all work on the technological sense and for many other things, of course, as well. I'm just going to play this Bill Emerson tune real fast. It's such a fun tune to play. In C minor also. Thank you, Bill Emerson, for that. And thank you, folks, for all joining me here. I'm going to do one more medley, actually. Again, since this is ostensibly a bluegrass festival, I wouldn't be here without Earl Scruggs. I owe him so much, as do many people. And so this is going to be an Earl Scruggs medley, starting with a Bob Dylan tune, of all things. Bob Dylan is re-emerging with some new material, as it's turning out. And so we'll send this out to Bob, wherever he is in Malibu or wherever he might be. I'll just do a final tune here. But anyway, the first tune was written by Bob Dylan. It's the theme, or the title track, from his Nashville Skyline album. And it's called Nashville Skyline. And then I'll go into a little bit of Ground Speed, one of my all-time favorite Earl tunes. And finish off with probably Shuckin' the Corn. I think that would be appropriate. And a small thing. Mimi the Original, hello. And hello to Pete, Six Nations in Canada. Hello to both of you. Thanks for listening in. And I'll be back for another Quarantoni next Thursday night. Probably 8 o'clock. We might do it a little earlier, but we'll put out notice as to when that's going to be and with whom and how. So this is the Earl Scruggs medley. All right, I think that'll do it. And again, thanks so much, everybody, for being here for this week's quarantone. And please stay safe, be healthy, don't take any chances, wash those hands, wear those masks, and we'll see you next week. All the best. Take care.